The spotlight cuts through velvet darkness, illuminating a figure spinning in perfect silence. Arabesque, fouette, grand jeté, each movement poetry written in bone and sinew. This is Sophia Delacroix, 17 years old, dancing her final performance, though she doesn't know it yet. The Grand Empress Theater holds its breath as she completes her last pirouette, arms extended like broken wings against the crimson curtain. 5 years later, that same stage lies buried under dust and decay. Mark Delacroix pushes through the theater's rusted front doors, his weathered hands trembling against the cold metal. The building groans around him, a mausoleum of shattered dreams and unanswered prayers. Every step echoes in the cavernous space where his daughter once danced, where she vanished without explanation on a Tuesday night that changed everything. If you love chilling true crime mysteries, like and subscribe, and comment where you're watching from. The floorboards beneath his feet creak with the weight of 5 years' worth of sleepless nights, false leads, and hope that refuses to die. He's returned here for one reason: to search the one place investigators never thoroughly examined, her dressing room. The police had swept it once, cataloged her belongings, then sealed it away. But Mark knows his daughter. She kept secrets in the smallest spaces, hidden treasures in forgotten corners. His flashlight beam cuts through the darkness, revealing moth-eaten costumes hanging, like ghosts on their racks. The air tastes of old wood and broken promises. Somewhere in this tomb of memories lies an answer. It has to. But what he uncovered in her mirror's secret compartment will leave you breathless. The Grand Empress Theater was once the crown jewel of performing arts in this small Montana town. Built in 1923, its gilded balconies and crystal chandeliers had witnessed a century of dreams taking flight. For Sophia, it was more than a venue. It was home. She'd spent 6 years training on these boards, bleeding into the ancient wood through countless rehearsals, her bare feet memorizing every groove and splinter. The night she disappeared, October 15th, had been like any other. Evening rehearsal for the fall showcase, 30 other dancers present, 3 instructors monitoring. Security cameras captured her entering the building at 6:47 p.m. They never captured her leaving. At 10:30 p.m., when parents arrived for pickup, Sophia Delacroix had simply vanished. Her street clothes remained folded in her locker. Her car keys sat untouched on the dressing room vanity. Her phone lay abandoned on the costume rack, its screen cracked as if dropped in haste. The investigation consumed the town for months. Search parties combed the nearby forests. Divers explored the frigid lake behind the theater. The FBI interviewed every dancer, every teacher, every maintenance worker who'd set foot in the building that week. They found nothing. No signs of struggle, no ransom demands, no witnesses. Sophia had dissolved into the ether like morning mist. The theater closed 6 months later, its board of directors unable to continue under the shadow of tragedy. The building has stood empty ever since. Windows boarded, dreams abandoned to rot. The dance company scattered to other studios in neighboring towns. But the wound in this community's heart never healed. For Mark, every lead that went cold felt like losing her again. Every false tip from well-meaning strangers was another knife twist. His marriage crumbled under the weight of shared grief. His job suffered as sleepless nights blurred into exhausted days. Friends stopped calling when conversations inevitably returned to the same desperate questions. Where is she? What happened? Is she still alive? Now, 5 years later, he stands in the ruins of her world, knowing that any clue he finds here could finally bring peace, or shatter what little hope remains. Until now, every lead faded away. Mark Delacroix was never supposed to be here alone. This should have been a family pilgrimage. Him, his ex-wife Catherine, maybe even Sophia's younger brother David. But grief had scattered them like autumn leaves, each blown in different directions by the wind of their shared trauma. Catherine couldn't bear to enter the theater again. David, now 13, preferred to remember his sister through old videos rather than haunted spaces. So Mark came alone, as he'd done everything these past 5 years. Alone to the police station for updates that never came. Alone to psychics and mediums who promised closure but delivered only expensive disappointment. Alone to his empty house where Sophia's room remained untouched, her ballet shoes still hanging from the doorknob like a prayer. He runs his fingers along the dressing room's worn wooden vanity, remembering the countless times he'd found her here after rehearsal. Makeup smudged, hair escaping its tight bun, eyes bright with exhaustion and joy. She'd chatter about new choreography while he helped her pack her bag, her hands dancing through the air as she described each leap and turn. "Daddy, did you see my grand jeté in the second act? Mrs. Pemberton says I'm getting better at controlling my landing." Her voice echoes in the silence now, a ghost of enthusiasm that once filled this space with light. The toll of 5 years shows in the lines etched around Mark's eyes, in the gray threading through his once dark hair, in the way his shoulders curve inward, as if protecting his heart from further blows. He's 52 but looks older, worn down by the relentless grinding of hope against reality. Yet he's here, searching, because love doesn't recognize the word impossible. His calloused hands, hands that once lifted his daughter high above his head in the backyard, spinning her until she shrieked with laughter, now shake as they explore every corner of her sanctuary. Each drawer opened, each costume examined, each surface touched as both an act of devotion and an exercise in controlled desperation. Mark doesn't know if he's looking for his daughter or her ghost. He only knows that giving up isn't an option. The dressing room mirror hangs at an odd angle, tilted slightly to the right as if someone had bumped it years ago and never bothered to straighten it. Mark adjusts it absently, muscle memory from the dozens of times he'd done the same thing while waiting for Sophia to finish, changing. But as the mirror shifts, something catches his eye. A gap between the glass and its ornate wooden frame. His pulse quickens. He'd straightened this mirror 100 times before, but had he ever really looked at it? Really examined it? Mark pulls out his phone's flashlight and angles it behind the frame. There, almost invisible unless you know where to look, is a thin space between the mirror's backing and the wall. His fingers probe the gap, finding a small lever hidden in the decorative molding. When he presses it, a section of the wall panel clicks open like a secret door from a children's story. The hidden compartment is barely larger than a jewelry box, lined with faded purple velvet that might once have been royal. Inside, wrapped in a handkerchief yellowed with age, lies a slender ivory comb, the kind used to secure elaborate stage hairstyles, its delicate teeth carved with intricate patterns. But it's the engraving on the spine that stops Mark's heart. S.D. Unkamington, dance like nobody's watching. His breath catches in his throat. He'd given this comb to Sophia for her 16th birthday, having it specially engraved with her initials, and the phrase she'd whispered to herself before every performance. She'd worn it in her hair during the regional competition, where she'd placed first in contemporary ballet. She'd treasured it, never letting it out of her sight. So why was it hidden here, secreted away in a compartment he'd never known existed? Mark's akibitari. Hands tremble as he lifts the comb from its velvet nest. The ivory is cool against his palm, its surface worn smooth by countless uses. The tarnish along its decorative edges speaks of age, but also of careful preservation. Someone had placed it here deliberately, wrapped it protectively, hidden it with purpose. But beneath the comb, still nestled in the velvet, is something else. The corner of what appears to be a folded piece of paper peeks out from under the yellowed handkerchief. Mark's fingers hover over it, afraid to disturb whatever secret lies beneath. The theater groans around him, old wood settling in the cold. Somewhere in the distance, a loose board creaks as if moved by invisible feet. The shadows seem to press closer, drawn by the weight of discovery. He lifts the handkerchief, but what's under it stays hidden. The ivory comb weighs nothing in Mark's palm, yet it feels heavy as a gravestone. He tilts it toward his phone's light, studying every detail with the desperate intensity of an archaeologist examining a sacred artifact. The delicate teeth are slightly bent. The third one from the left bears a tiny chip he remembers from the night Sophia accidentally dropped it during a quick costume change. She'd cried then, thinking she'd ruined his gift, until he'd kissed her forehead and told her that the tiny flaw made it uniquely hers. Perfect things are boring, sweetheart. This little chip tells a story. Now that story has led him here, to this hidden compartment his daughter must have known about. But how? And why hide the comb she loved so much? The questions multiply like fractals, each answer spawning 10 more mysteries. The tarnish along the comb's ornate spine forms patterns in the dim light, swirls and shadows that seem to shift when he's not looking directly. His thumb traces the engraved letters. S.D. The curves of the S match the way Sophia wrote her name in her diary, with that little flourish at the bottom she'd practiced. For hours until it looked effortlessly elegant, a scent rises from the handkerchief beneath. Faded rose petals and something else. Vanilla? No, jasmine. The perfume from a small bottle Catherine had given Sophia for her 17th birthday. She'd worn it sparingly, saving it for special performances, for moments that mattered. The fragrance is barely detectable now, more memory than reality. But it's there. Mark closes his eyes and breathes it in, transported suddenly to the last time he'd hugged his daughter. She'd been wearing that perfume then, mixed with the salt of nervous sweat before her final rehearsal. He'd kissed the top of her head and told her to break a leg, their traditional exchange before every performance. That was the last thing he'd ever said to her. The paper beneath the handkerchief rustles softly, begging to be revealed. Mark's hand hovers over it, knowing that whatever secret lies folded, there will change everything. Again. Will reveal the hidden message in a moment. Mark unfolds the paper with surgical precision, afraid it might crumble at his touch. The handwriting is unmistakably Sophia's, those careful loops and precise crosses she'd practiced until her penmanship won school awards. But the words make his blood freeze. If you're reading this, something's happened to me. The passage behind the stage left curtain leads to the old storage tunnels. Count 13 bricks from the corner. Press the loose one. I've been meeting someone. There. Someone who promised to help my career, but I think I made a mistake. The photos he showed me weren't of other dancers. They were of missing girls. Girls who look like me. If I disappear, start there. I'm sorry, Daddy. I should have told you. Mark's vision blurs. His daughter had known she was in danger. She'd left him a map to find her, and he'd missed it for 5 years. The paper trembles in his hands as he reads it again, each word a dagger of regret. She'd been meeting someone who'd shown her photos of missing girls. He stumbles from the dressing room, clutching the note and comb like lifelines. His footsteps echo through the empty theater as he makes his way to the stage, his phone's flashlight beam dancing wildly across abandoned props and dust-covered equipment. The stage-left curtain hangs in tatters, moth-eaten and forgotten. Behind it, Mark finds what looks like a solid wall, wood paneling installed decades ago to hide the theater's utilitarian bones. But when he examines it closely, running his hands along the surface, he feels the subtle differences in texture that suggest a hidden opening. His fingers find the corner Sophia referenced, begin counting bricks in the original wall behind the paneling. 13 bricks from the corner. The loose one gives slightly under pressure, then clicks inward like a button. A section of paneling swings open on silent hinges, revealing a narrow passage that disappears into darkness. The air that flows from the opening carries the scent of damp earth and something else, something metallic that makes Mark's stomach turn. He calls Dr. Elena Vasquez, the theater archivist who'd helped catalog Sophia's costumes for the police investigation. Elena had spent 40 years documenting the theater's history. If anyone knew about hidden passages, it would be her. Mark? Elena's voice is thick with sleep. It's past midnight. What's wrong? I found something. At the theater, Elena. Did you know there were tunnels under the building? A long pause. Mark, you shouldn't be there alone. Those old passages, they were used during Prohibition for smuggling, then as bomb shelters during the war. The city sealed most of them decades ago because they're not safe. Someone's been using them recently. Sophia knew about them. She left me a note. Elena's sharp intake of breath cuts through the phone's static. I'm coming. Don't go down there alone. Some of those tunnels connect to the old mine shafts. If you get lost. But Mark is already stepping into the passage, Sophia's note clutched in his free hand. The walls press close on either side, barely wide enough for his shoulders. The floor slopes downward into a darkness that seems to swallow his phone's light. He realizes it contradicts every clue they ever had. The passage opens into a larger chamber carved from the living rock beneath the theater. Mark's flashlight reveals a space that should have been forgotten, but isn't. Modern battery-powered lanterns sit in alcoves. Fresh water bottles line one wall, a sleeping bag lies rolled in the corner, and beside it, a leather portfolio thick with photographs. Mark's hands shake as he opens the portfolio. The first image stops his breath. Sophia, but not as he knew her. This is his daughter at 16, caught unaware outside the theater, her face turned towards someone off camera, her expression excited and trusting. The next photo shows her entering the passage he just navigated. Then another and another, a visual diary of secret meetings spanning months. But it's the other photos that make his stomach revolt. Dozens of girls, all young, all dancers, all bearing a haunting resemblance to Sophia. Some he recognizes from missing person reports that had crossed his desk during his desperate searches. Others are strangers, but their faces tell the same story. Trust betrayed, innocence stolen, lives cut short. At the bottom of the portfolio wrapped in plastic is a folded note in different handwriting. Masculine, precise, cold. SD, final performance scheduled. Prepare accordingly. Talent scout arrangements confirmed. Remember, your family's safety depends on your cooperation. MK double quote. Mark's knees buckle. Someone had been grooming his daughter, using her dreams against her, threatening her family to ensure her silence. The talent scout story, the promise of a career, all lies to lure her into this underground nightmare. Inside the handkerchief from the dressing room, Mark finds a tiny folded note, different from the portfolio's contents. This one is in Sophia's handwriting again, but shakier, more desperate. Map to emergency exit if something goes wrong. Follow the painted arrows. They lead to the old mine entrance near Miller's Creek. I marked it with 3 white stones. If you find this, I tried to escape. I tried to come home. Mark looks up from the note and sees them. Faded red arrows, painted on the tunnel walls, barely visible but clearly marking a path deeper into the underground maze. His daughter had planned an escape route. She'd tried to save herself. His phone buzzes with a text from Elena. Police are on their way. I told them about the tunnels. Stay where you are. But Mark can't wait. Somewhere in this darkness, his daughter might still be alive. 5 years of hoping, of never giving up, crystallizes into desperate action. He follows the painted arrows, his footsteps echoing in the stone corridors. What lies down that hidden corridor? Don't look away. The arrows lead Mark deeper into the bowels of the earth, through passages that grow narrower and more treacherous with each step. Water drips from the ceiling, forming pools that reflect his phone's dying light like dark mirrors. The air grows thinner, mustier, carrying the weight of decades of secrets. After what feels like hours but is probably only 20 minutes, the passage opens into a vast, natural cavern. Mark's flashlight beam struggles to penetrate the darkness, revealing glimpses of rusted mining equipment and abandoned wooden supports. The smell here is different, not just damp and earth, but something organic and wrong. His foot kicks something that rattles across the stone floor. He aims his light downward and sees scattered bones, small animal bones, he tells himself, though his heart knows better. The beam continues its arc and illuminates a makeshift camp against the far, while a cot with moldering blankets, a wooden crate serving as a table, and chained to a support beam, a collection of personal items that makes Mark's soul scream. Ballet shoes, dozens of them, in various sizes and states of decay. Some still hold the shape of the feet that once wore them. Hair ribbons, jewelry, and photographs. Polaroids scattered across the crate's surface, like tarot cards spelling out doom. The beam of his flashlight catches something that stops his heart. Sophia's red hair ribbon, the one she'd worn in her hair the night she disappeared. It's tied around the wrist of a figure hunched in the shadows beyond the cot. Sophia! The word tears from Mark's throat like a prayer. The figure doesn't move. Can't move. As Mark approaches, his light reveals the truth. Bones wrapped in the remnants of a costume, a skull tilted at an unnatural angle, empty sockets staring into eternity. But it's not Sophia. The hair is wrong, the size different. This girl has been here much longer. You're not supposed to be here. The voice from behind makes Mark spin around, his heart hammering against his ribs. A man emerges from a side passage, tall, thin, wearing coveralls and a maintenance badge from the theater. Mark recognizes him vaguely as one of the custodial staff from 5 years ago. Martin Kroger, the man says, as if making a formal introduction. You probably don't remember me. I kept the theater clean. Kept its secrets clean, too. Mark's phone is at 12% battery, its light growing dimmer. In the wavering beam, Kroger's face appears gaunt, hollow-eyed, with the look of a man who's been living underground too long. Where is she? Mark's voice is steel wrapped in desperation. Where's my daughter? Kroger smiles, a death's head grin in the failing light. Which one? I've had so many daughters over the years. They all dance so beautifully before they learn the truth. The man pulls something from his coveralls, a knife with a blade that's seen too much use. Your Sophia was special, though. Fought harder than the others. Took me 3 days to break her spirit. He gestures toward a newer passage Mark hadn't noticed. She's waiting for you. Has been for 5 years. Mark's world narrows to the knife, to the man holding it, to the terrible arithmetic of survival. Behind him lie the bones of unknown girls. Ahead lies whatever remains of his daughter. The painted arrows on the walls seem to pulse in his peripheral vision, marking not escape routes, but a path to hell. Mark lunges forward without thinking, driven by 5 years of suppressed rage and desperate love. Kroger is ready for him, the knife slashing through the air, where Mark's chest had been a heartbeat before. They grapple in the darkness, Mark's phone spinning away to cast wild shadows across the cavern walls. She called for you, Kroger hisses as they struggle. Every day for months. Daddy, help me. Daddy, find me. Even when I showed her what happened to the others, she still believed you'd come. The words fuel Mark's strength. He drives his elbow into Kroger's ribs, hears the satisfying crack of bone. The knife clatters away across the stone floor. But Kroger recovers quickly, rabbit-punching Mark in the kidney and sending him stumbling toward the cot. That's when Mark sees her. The passage Kroger had indicated doesn't lead to another chamber. It's a shallow alcove, and there, arranged as if sleeping, is Sophia. 5 years have taken their toll, but it's undeniably her. The red hair, though faded, the delicate bone structure, the silver bracelet Mark had given her for her 15th birthday, still clasped around her wrist. She's wearing her white practice leotard, the one she died in, posed in an eternal arabesque even in death. Around her are the personal items she treasured, her first pair of poignant shoes, the program from her debut performance, a photo of their family from Christmas morning 2 years before she vanished. Kroger has created a shrine to his victim. Beautiful, isn't she? Kroger's voice comes from behind him, breathless but triumphant. I preserve them all at their peak, before life disappoints them, before they lose their grace. She should thank me. Mark turns slowly, his grief transmuted into something pure and deadly. Kroger has retrieved the knife, but his confidence wavers at the look in Mark's eyes. You made one mistake, Mark says, his voice eerily calm. You left her note for me to find. She outsmarted you even in death. Above them, the sound of voices echoes through the tunnels. Elena's voice and others. The police have found the passage. Help is coming, but too late for justice. Too late for reunion. Mark notices movement near the alcove, a gentle stirring of air that shouldn't exist in this sealed space. Following the current, his eyes find what Sophia's arrows had truly been pointing toward. Not an escape route, but evidence. Hidden in a crevice behind her makeshift tomb is a metal box, the kind used to protect documents from moisture. Inside, he knows without looking, will be Kroger's complete records. Names, dates, locations. A catalog of horror that will bring justice for all the missing girls, not just Sophia. Behind him, Kroger realizes what Mark has seen. The man's facade finally cracks, revealing the panic beneath his calculated madness. He raises the knife one last time, but his hands are shaking now. Then, the shui, music begins to play on its own. The melody is hauntingly familiar. Sophia's favorite piece from Swan Lake, the one she danced to in her final performance. But there's no music player visible, no speakers, just the ethereal sound floating through the cavern like a ghost made of notes and memory. Kroger freezes, his face draining of color. "That's impossible," he whispers. "I destroyed all the recordings." The music grows stronger, more insistent, and with it comes a sound that stops both. Men's hearts. The soft tap of point shoes on stone. From the shadows beyond Sophia's alcove, a figure emerges. Pale, translucent, but unmistakably real in this space between worlds. It's Sophia, but not as Mark found her. This is his daughter as she lived. 17, radiant, her hair flowing behind her as she performs one final dance. Her eyes meet her father's across the cavern, and she smiles with infinite love and forgiveness. She extends one graceful arm toward the metal box Mark has. Discovered, then toward Kroger, who stumbles backward in terror. The knife falls from his nerveless fingers as he stares at the impossible sight of his victim dancing free. "No," he moans. "You're dead. I watched you die. I preserved you perfectly." Sophia's ghostly form continues its dance, growing brighter with each movement. Other figures begin to emerge from the shadows. The girls whose bones litter this underground tomb, all of them moving in ethereal ballet, all of them pointing, accusatory fingers at their killer. Kroger's sanity snaps completely. He turns and runs blindly into the darkness, his screams echoing through the tunnels until they fade to silence. Police lights flood the cavern as Elena leads the rescue team through the passages. They find Mark kneeling beside his daughter's remains, tears streaming down his face, the metal box clutched in his hands. The music has stopped. The ghostly dancers vanished, but the evidence of Kroger's crimes lies scattered around them. Detective Sarah Chen, who'd worked Sophia's original case, approaches cautiously. "Mark, are you hurt?" He looks up at her, his face transformed by a mixture of profound grief and peaceful resolution. "I found her," he says simply. "She led me to the truth." In the metal box are photographs, documents, and a detailed journal spanning 15 years. Kroger's complete confession, written in his own hand, detailing the murders of 37 young women. Each entry meticulously documented, each victim lovingly described in terms that make the investigators sick. But mixed in with the horror are Sophia's own writings, pages torn from a diary she'd managed to keep hidden. Her account of recognizing the danger, of planning her escape, of leaving clues for her father to find. Even in captivity, even facing death, she'd been thinking of others, documenting everything she could to help future investigators. Emergency crews flood in. Mark emerges into daylight, clutching her comb and note. 6 months later, the Grand Empress Theater hosts its first performance in 5 years, a memorial concert for the 37 victims of Martin Kroger. The killer was found 3 days after Mark's discovery, dead in an abandoned mine shaft, apparently having fallen while fleeing through the tunnels. Mark sits in the front row, Catherine beside him for the first time since their divorce. David, now 14, holds his father's hand as dancers from across the region perform. Pieces chosen to honor each victim. When Sophia's favorite music from Swan Lake begins, a spotlight illuminates the empty Space Center stage where she once danced. The theater has been transformed from a tomb into a living memorial. The hidden passages have been sealed, but not before forensic teams recovered remains that brought closure to dozens of families. The metal box Sophia helped Mark find contained enough evidence to link Kroger to cold cases across 3 states. A scholarship fund, in Sophia's name, now supports young dancers who show exceptional promise but lack financial means. Mark serves on the board, using his daughter's story to teach others about the dangers that can hide behind promises of stardom. In the lobby, a memorial wall displays photos of all 37 victims. But it's Sophia's image that draws the most visitors, captured mid-leap in her final performance. Arms extended, face radiant with joy. Beneath her photo, an inscription reads, "She danced like..." Nobody was watching, and in the end, everybody saw. Catherine leans over and whispers, "She would have loved this." All these people remembering her through dance. Mark nods, his eyes never leaving the stage. As the final notes of Swan Lake fade to silence, he could swear he sees a familiar figure in the wings. Red hair catching the stage lights, a smile that lights up the darkness. The investigation continues, but slowly now, methodically. Federal agents are working through Kroger's records, identifying victims, notifying families, bringing decades-old cases to resolution. Mark has become an advocate for missing persons, using his experience to help other families navigate the maze of hope and despair. But questions remain. How many other predators are out there using dreams as weapons? How many hidden passages exist beneath the stages where children chase their ambitions? What really happened behind those stage doors? And will we ever learn her fate?